Jon Huntsman sits in his office. He's the CEO of a packaging company. Suddenly, his receptionist comes in. "There are gentlemen out front looking for you," she says. They refuse to give their names, and one of the men has his briefcase strapped to his wrist. They look like they are FBI or perhaps CIA. What could they possibly want? The shadowy pair enters and one of the men opens the briefcase. They ask Huntsman, "Why didn't you come to us first?" These guys are not government agents. They are vice presidents of McDonald's. And they want Huntsman's invention, this ingenious box.
This thing is incredibly efficient. It's very light. It costs just 2 cents per container. It keeps food warm. It's easy to open and actually layer sandwiches in there. It's easy to close.
For many years, this container will house the Big Mac. It will revolutionize fast food packaging. It will make Huntsman and McDonald's incredibly rich. And it will become a cultural token. But even though it's incredibly popular to this day, it was abruptly killed in an emergency meeting 36 years ago. Why?
If they're creating large volumes of waste or they're relying on hazardous chemicals, there is a cost to doing that. And the cost today is being borne by regular people.
McDonald's had no plans to move away from plastic.
Environmental protest.
70% of it became litter.
Our research starts in London. We sent our writer Baumi Nguyen to the UK to sit down with Saabira Chaudhuri. She spent 12 years as a staff reporter for the Wall Street Journal and wrote the book Consumed: How Big Brands Got Us Hooked on Plastic.
In 1937, two brothers, Richard and Maurice McDonald, opened a hot dog drive-in restaurant in Pasadena, California. A few years later, they shift to San Bernardino, California, and they open what is called the McDonald Broadway Burger Bar Drive-In. And they're selling hot dogs, burgers, a few different things.
At the turn of the 20th century, most Americans still eat their meals at home. But with the automobile on the rise, people travel more frequently. For work, social events, and leisure. And travelers get hungry.
1948 is a really key year for the McDonald brothers. That is when they strip their menu back, they get rid of lots of items, they focus mainly on the burgers. They also fire all of their car hops, the people who used to go out and serve people waiting in their cars. And instead, they roll out disposable packaging. So instead of having washable plates and cutlery, they have disposable everything. And that very quickly brings labor costs down. It allows them to sell food very fast, very cheap, and it sort of really sets the scene for this model of fast food that McDonald's will eventually take the world over.
Also, more and more women join the workforce. Their work away from home increases the family income. At the same time, many women are no longer available to cook dinner at home, and they need to eat too. It is the beginning of the fast food industry as we know it. It will transform the way we eat, how we live.
Fast forward to a few years later, it's 1954, and a man called Ray Kroc walks into this McDonald's restaurant, and he is dazzled by what he sees. Ray Kroc was a one-time jazz musician. He is now a paper cup salesman, and he meets these brothers, and he's wowed by what he's seeing in the restaurant, and he asks them to give him the rights to franchise McDonald's throughout the US. They do. A few years later, Ray Kroc actually buys the whole McDonald's brand from the brothers. The rest, as they say, is history.
In August 1955, Life magazine publishes an article on how disposable items cut down household chores. The article says all the plates, trays, straws, towels flying in the air would take 40 hours to clean. But housewives don't need to bother with that anymore. Now you just use it. And instead of cleaning afterwards, you just toss it away. It's throwaway living. And it's en vogue. In California, a young man is following these developments closely. Jon Huntsman works as a salesman for an egg company. The cardboard packaging frustrates him. It's not very sturdy. Eggs would break during transportation and leak, which causes substantial losses. Huntsman thinks to himself there must be a better egg carton than this. One day he visits a Dalco plant which makes meat and fruit trays. The company has been pioneering a special plastic called polystyrene. A lightweight, flexible, leak-proof and inexpensive material. Perfect for egg containers. But the company hasn't managed to develop usable egg packaging yet, so Huntsman brings in people he knows. He doesn't care if they know anything about polystyrene. They just get to work, and many trials and errors later, they got a decent, workable plastic egg carton. Huntsman's innovation quickly gains traction in the industry. Soon enough, Dalco produces 400 million egg cartons a year and turns enormous profits. It's a huge boost for Huntsman's career. He's appointed Dalco's president and becomes a major player in the packaging industry. In 1970, Huntsman leaves Dalco to start his own company, the Huntsman Container Corporation. Huntsman believes many more products deserve to be packaged in plastic.
I'd go through grocery store aisles and look at everything made of paper and glass and say some days these could be made out of plastic.
At the same time, fast food chains like McDonald's are popping up everywhere. And Huntsman makes two observations. 1. With more women working, the fast food restaurants are getting more business. 2. Even though it's supposed to be fast food, it's not quite fast enough. The cooks only prepare your meal once you order so they can serve it to you hot and fresh. Also, the food comes in a paper container, which becomes soggy and doesn't keep the food warm at all. And with the growing number of customers, more people have to wait and wait and wait. But Huntsman has an idea. He gathers his R&D team, a little group of 3 friends. Huntsman Container Corporation is already producing salad bowls out of styrofoam. What if you took 2 of those and joined them at one end? It's the birth of the clamshell box. The box is made entirely out of styrofoam. But what is that exactly? The smallest unit is this, styrene. It's a colorless, flammable liquid with a sweet scent. Styrene itself is highly volatile. You can barely mix it with water, it evaporates easily and is extremely flammable. But in the process of polymerization, styrene molecules get bound together like pearls on a very long string. Now, you have polystyrene. And unlike styrene, this polymer is a sturdy yet flexible material. Due to the nature of styrene, it's virtually water resistant. And because it doesn't absorb liquids or moisture, it doesn't provide a breeding ground for microorganisms such as bacteria or fungi. When you foam it up, the polystyrene cells lock up air and you get EPS. Expanded polystyrene is made of 98% air and just 2% polystyrene particles. Air is a bad heat conductor, so the trapped air in the cells form a great heat isolator. It also absorbs shock and pressure, similar to bubble wrap. All these properties make EPS great for food transport, keeping the food inside fresh and protected. At least, that's what they thought. Huntsman has the perfect burger packaging. Time to reach out to McDonald's, the front-runners of the industry. He travels to the headquarters in Oak Brook, Illinois. For 3 days, he tries to get in touch with executives, someone in marketing or distribution, someone high up with decision-making authority. But no one gets back to him, so Huntsman tries to get their attention another way. We know this much about Huntsman's story because of his autobiography. We aim to make our sources transparent, but a Google Doc isn't always an accessible or structured solution. So for this video, we wanted to build a special source wall to show precisely where and what part of our sources we used. But we can't really code, like, at all. Intro, Lovable. Lovable creates a fully functional application with just a few lines of ideas. For our source vault, we fed a rough description into the chat. A solid concept here, a few options there, and during building, Lovable showed us the process and prototype instantly. It enabled us to correct functions and implement our own needs directly, instead of tinkering and duct taping the whole thing afterwards. Now our sources are searchable and precisely presented in neat categories. But we really just scratched the surface of what Lovable can do. Whatever your idea, you can go from prototype to live product in no time. Lovable's independently certified for security. Your app should be too, so always get it reviewed if you're handling anything sensitive. If you want to build something but you're not sure how, check out Lovable and get started. Scan the QR code or head to the link in the description. Back to Huntsman. One of his friends knows the senior buyer of Burger King. He arranges a meeting for Huntsman, and the Burger King executives are interested, but also hesitant. They don't want to roll out the clamshell box without a market test. So the men agree on a trial. Burger King is about to phase out the ham and cheese sandwich. They stop the process, and instead they serve it in the clamshell box to check whether better packaging would renew customer interest. And it does. Next, Burger King uses the clamshell box for their popular Have It Your Way burger. And suddenly, McDonald's is very interested in Huntsman's invention after all. They make a deal and start working together.
So in 1975, McDonald's decides it's going to switch from paper to polystyrene foam. There are also big benefits to McDonald's, which is the polystyrene containers are cheap at just 2 cents a pop. They're light and they keep food warm for a long time. And so McDonald's, they roll these things out. The franchisees are very happy.
And the timing for Huntsman's invention is golden.
There are mounting worries about deforestation all through the 60s in the US. Paper is being widely littered. People can see that it's everywhere. And polystyrene is seen as this environmentally friendly alternative because it is made from a byproduct of the fossil fuel industry. You're not cutting down the trees.
This deal will change Huntsman's life, the trajectory of the McDonald's empire, and in many ways, the entire world. Even 40 years later, people are still swooning over the clamshell box. On Reddit, we saw people saying that the Big Mac literally tasted better when served in it. Perhaps it's pure nostalgia, but some users claim the burgers were hotter and fresher than coming out of today's paper box. Well, let's see if that's actually true. Through the power of the internet, we got our hands on an original clamshell box. And we sent our art director Timo to test if the Reddit claims hold up.
Hey, I'm Timo and I'll make the taste test with the OG McDonald's clamshell box. So let's go. So, I got these burgers like 20 minutes ago. Let's see which one is warmer. So yeah, it's kind of cold. And this one is definitely warmer. It is, really. Wow. So let's do the taste test. It's like a 20-minute-old burger, to be honest. Let's go to the clamshell box. I'm not a burger expert, but this one is definitely warmer and therefore tastes fresher than the one in the normal box.
The burger and McDonald's taste test had shown consistently over the years that when consumers were presented with options, they always chose the warmest burger. And that was always the one they liked best. Piggybacking off the immense success of the clamshell container, McDonald's then rolls out what it calls the double clamshell. The McDLT is created by McDonald's to be this really iconic product that it pours $100 million into advertising in its big fight against its rival Burger King. And it contains a burger and cheese on the warm side and lettuce, tomato, and another piece of the bun on the other side. You know, bringing those both together, you had this sandwich that wouldn't otherwise be possible if we didn't have the double clamshell.
In the meantime, Huntsman's Container Corporation is flourishing. Over the years, he expands his plastic empire, buying up more and more assets and divisions in the space. His business relationship with his longtime partner McDonald's is going well. Well, except for this one time, according to Huntsman's autobiography. One day, a few McDonald's middle managers summon Huntsman and a colleague into the headquarters. Huntsman has been selling his clamshell boxes to competitors, and the managers are not happy with it. But McDonald's has no exclusive agreement with Huntsman. Now, the managers are giving him an ultimatum. Either Huntsman turns over the legal and technical rights to the clamshell and stops selling to competitors, or McDonald's will withdraw its business. Huntsman listens to their demands patiently. Then he picks up the phone. Maybe we should ask U.S. Attorney General Richard Kleindienst about this, he says, as he dials the number to the White House. Before Huntsman struck the deal with McDonald's, he worked as special assistant and staff secretary to President Nixon. After a few years, he left the administration to focus on his business empire, but he's still serving the office of the president as consultant and has excellent connections to the government. None of the McDonald's managers expected Huntsman to have the White House on speed dial. One of them takes the receiver out of Huntsman's hand and puts it back. It's all a misunderstanding, he assures. A few of his colleagues flee the room. The remaining managers clarify what they actually mean. They want to increase orders with Huntsman's company. We asked McDonald's and Burger King about their collaboration with Huntsman. Neither of them got back to us. In any case, McDonald's rolls out the clamshell box for more and more of its products. Soon, the pastel-colored containers are everywhere. As Huntsman puts it, we had revolutionized food packaging. Our sales of the Big Mac container took off like wildfire around the world. But there's a cost to the success.
Everything is fine for many years until 1987 rolls around and suddenly there's this big crisis that hits. That is when a garbage barge called the Mobro starts sailing around. It leaves Long Island carrying 3,000 tons of Long Island trash, and it's ostensibly going to North Carolina. But when it gets to North Carolina, they say, we don't want this garbage. And so the Mobro then goes to Louisiana, and Louisiana says, well, we don't want it. And so they try, all kinds of places. They try Mexico, Belize, the Bahamas, Florida, and each of these places says, no, we don't want the trash. And this becomes a nightly news story. Americans all over the country are turning on their television, opening their newspapers, and seeing headlines saying, America is running out of landfill space. We're producing so much garbage, we have nowhere to put it.
And suddenly, the once famed clamshell box, hailed for being more environmentally friendly than paper packaging, becomes a major problem.
In 1987, a few months after the Mobro ends its voyage, when the trash is all burned eventually in Brooklyn, McDonald's starts coming under fire for the polystyrene clamshell container. People think it's a huge waste, it's a bulky container that's only used for a few seconds.
Now, instead of throwaway living, plastic panic kicks in. And McDonald's is forced to act.
In New York, there is an effort to ban polystyrene foam, and McDonald's really becomes the poster child of this big waste crisis that America feels like it is grappling with.
At the time, McDonald's reportedly contributes roughly 80 million pounds of polystyrene waste per year. That's equivalent to 4 billion clamshell boxes. That makes McDonald's one of the biggest single users of polystyrene in the country. Lawmakers are getting active.
The company initially doesn't really know what to do, but quite quickly starts looking for solutions. One of the things it says is we will phase out the use of CFCs, which are known to be hurting the ozone layer. We'll use an alternative.
Meanwhile, environmental groups are gaining more and more traction. One grassroots organization has been pressuring McDonald's for years. Now they're breathing down McDonald's neck harder than ever. And this time, they mobilized the backbone of McDonald's customers. School kids. Local chapters of Kids Against Polystyrene urged the fast food chain to give up on the clamshell boxes. On coordinated action days, kids and their parents flood their local McDonald's during peak lunchtime and order a burger. I'll have a Big Mac, but I'll take it on a paper napkin, no styrofoam, please. Suddenly, the exact same box which allows McDonald's to serve food very fast slows the entire process down immensely. Because in order to serve as quickly as possible, pre-cooked food would be prepared on those boxes, ready to be handed out. The action basically interrupted the carefully designed assembly line work. In other actions, the activists collect clamshell boxes together with school classes and mail the dump directly to McDonald's headquarters. Across the US, students relabel the iconic Ronald McDonald to Ronald McToxic. But all of this doesn't make McDonald's budge. They say styrofoam does not contribute that much to the overall waste.
Back in the 1980s, McDonald's said polystyrene is so much better than paper.
And they flood the discussion with studies and reports. Unlike paper, McDonald's argues, plastic aerates the soil.
Shelby Yastrow, the former general counsel who I interviewed, kind of said to me, you can fund studies that will basically say anything because you can cherry pick assumptions that make your particular material look like the most environmentally friendly.
They even launched a campaign in favor of polystyrene packaging. But the bad press doesn't disappear. And even worse, as the fast food industry gets more competitive, Burger King gets a leg up in the battle. Their packaging seems to be biodegradable. But instead of giving up the clamshell box, the $2.5 billion polystyrene industry and McDonald's push in another direction. Recycling.
And paper at the time could be recycled. Glass, aluminum, food waste could be composted.
In 1989, McDonald's rolls out its pilot recycling program to 450 restaurants in New England. Customers are asked to sort their trash into separate bins, one for plastic, one for waste. The collected clamshells would then be sent to recycling centers to get a new life. In those facilities, the polystyrene waste would be washed, cut up, and melted into plastic pellets. Those could then be shaped into restaurant trays, flower pots, garbage pails, plastic lumber, etc. In April 1990, on the occasion of Earth Day, McDonald's publicly announces its McRecycle program. They pledged to spend $100 million on recycled products for the construction, remodeling, and equipping of its restaurants. Shelby Yastro, General Counsel and Senior Vice President of Environmental Affairs at McDonald's, goes even further. By 1992, he promises a fully recycled McDonald's restaurant with countertops, seats, and flooring made from recycled plastics. That promise even impresses President George H.W. Bush. He awards Yastro and McDonald's with a medal, thanking them for their commitment to recycled materials. But McRecycle doesn't land with the environmentalists, and they are more than unimpressed.
The thing they don't tell the American public is that recycling polystyrene foam is very, very difficult. It's one thing just taking it off the factory floor. These are clean scraps. They're already in one place. When you are trying to collect polystyrene from many different restaurants, it's already soiled with food. It is an economically unviable proposition. Nobody really wants to buy this stuff at the end. Polystyrene also has this specific disadvantage, which is it's very, very light.
Basically, trucks picking up the clamshell boxes would mostly be loaded with air. Imagine popped popcorn. A lot of volume, but virtually no weight. And haulers are getting paid by weight, so the whole concept is economically unviable.
But McDonald's, for a couple of years, kind of keeps up this campaign to say, we will recycle the polystyrene, we can do it, even though they had no buyers at all for the foam. We're facing all the same problems in terms of how economically unviable the process is, but the polystyrene makers continue to say, we can recycle this thing, just let us prove it. There is a technology that will allow us to do it.
The McDonald's executives are still clinging on to the clamshell boxes. And with the ongoing bad PR, McDonald's is forced to collaborate with one of its critics. In August 1990, McDonald's introduces its partnership with the Environmental Defense Fund. It's a respected, yet relatively unknown organization. EDF has a reputation of taking corporations to court to force changes. And so far, the industry and the activists have been fighting each other, waiting for legislation to step in. But now, EDF brings a different approach into the battle. It aims for coalitions of former enemies to achieve environmental change. Together with McDonald's, they form the Waste Reduction Task Force.
And the idea is, let's show the public how green we are with all of this work we're doing to cut waste internally with these nonprofits and with the recycling efforts we have for polystyrene foam.
By now, it's the fall of 1990.
And Bob Langert, who was in charge of McDonald's recycling, walks down the hall to the PR department and finds this press release that he wasn't really meant to see. And it says that McDonald's is going to be rolling out this polystyrene recycling effort to all of its restaurants across the US.
But there's a catch to it. They know it's not working at all. The pilot program shows that customers were still used to throwing everything in one garbage bin. People are confused or overwhelmed by the instructions. At best, a third of customers recycled correctly.
Langert is shocked. He knows the polystyrene recycling is going incredibly badly. He writes about this later in his own book where he says, this was complete greenwashing. I vowed to never stoop to this level again. But that day, he walks down the hall to the office of the McDonald's General Counsel, Shelby Yastro. And he says, Shelby, I think we really need to step away from polystyrene. It's really not recyclable.
Shelby Yastro eventually agrees. But there's another huge problem. The styrene part in the polystyrene clamshell boxes is carcinogenic.
And so that's not something McDonald's wants to be associated with. Convincing the McDonald's president, Ed Renzi, was going to be very hard. Both Shelby and Bob knew that. So they pick up the phone and they call Fred Krupp, who is a young lawyer who's heading up the Environmental Defense Fund. Fred Krupp puts his toxicologist on the phone with Ed Renzi, and she explains in detail how styrene has been found to be potentially carcinogenic, and how having both recyclers and consumers come into contact with this is not a good idea. So Ed Renzi, after years, eventually capitulates.
There's a victory today for the environmental movement. McDonald's has announced it will eliminate the plastic foam containers.
McDonald's has given up after years of arguing. The giant fast food chains threw in the clamshell.
So we did it for the good earth, and we did it for our customers, and we did it for ourselves.
In terms of PR, McDonald's decision pays off immediately.
Environmentalists all hailed this as a big win, just because McDonald's had stopped using polystyrene foam.
It could be the beginning of corporate America seeing that the future is green and realizing that environmental groups can help show them the way.
Even though there's scientific evidence that says that polystyrene's okay, our customers said, well, even so, do you really need it? And the fact of the matter is we don't, and we want to keep our customers happy. That's the business we're in.
But the McDonald's boss doesn't tell the public what actually changed his mind. In Bob Langard's book, Renzi is quoted saying, "When another ugly head got in the middle of it, this notion that styrene causes cancer, that was the moment I decided we can't let this happen. Because it is one thing to talk about landfills. It's something else to get talked about as kids may get cancer from eating Big Macs." Several organizations listed styrene as possibly carcinogenic to humans based on limited animal studies. Decades later, in 2011, the US National Toxicology Program listed styrene as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. Another 8 years later, the International Agency for Research on Cancer bumped its classification from 2B to 2A. Now it's not just possibly, but probably carcinogenic to humans. The IARC sees strong evidence that styrene damages DNA, ultimately leading to carcinogenic mutations. And even though McDonald's ditched the clamshell box back in 1990, polystyrene remained in its rotation for another 2.5 decades.
The environmentalists may have won the fight over clamshells, but the battle still looms over cups.
In 2018, McDonald's finally stops using polystyrene foam across its business. It had been using it for cups for a long time, even though it had stepped away from the clamshell.
McDonald's went on to replace clamshell packaging with quilt wraps, thin sheets of paper-based packaging coated in plastic. They're grease and moisture resistant and keep the food quite warm.
So quite ironically, there is still plastic in this wrap. Nobody was really paying attention to the fact that this thing was not recyclable. It was still going to landfills. It was still taking up space. It was still releasing methane as it slowly broke down. In some ways, the paper was even worse than the polystyrene because of the methane it was releasing. In some ways, McDonald's has just swapped the problem. It's stuck with disposability. It's gone from material A to material B. And we are where we are today.
In 2020, Frontline and NPR released an investigative documentary. In it, former plastic executives admit how their push for recycling in the 90s was just one big marketing campaign.
Some were very skeptical, but felt they had to do it. I think others were more hopeful. There was never an enthusiastic belief that recycling was ultimately going to work in a significant way.
But even big environmentalists such as Greenpeace believed in the narrative.
We bought this myth that recycling will solve the problem and we don't need to worry about the amount of plastic being produced.
The myth of recycling was mostly just a distraction.
If the public thinks the recycling is working, then they're not going to be as concerned about the environment. I think they knew that the infrastructure wasn't there to really have recycling amount to a whole lot.
Recycling doesn't seem to solve the problem single-use packaging like the McDonald's box creates. Perhaps the single use is the real problem.
There has been this push towards reuse and rolling out reusable containers. Already in France, McDonald's has been forced to serve people dining in with reusable containers. That is being watched very closely in the US.
In one of our very first videos, we looked at how McDonald's was forced to introduce reusable cutlery in France. And even though this might look like promising progress, the company funded several reuse skeptical studies and lobbies aggressively against reusable packaging in the EU. According to the NGO Story of Stuff, McDonald's led a multi-year lobbying campaign successfully blocking regulation to require reusables for on-site dining. Decades passed since the clamshell box saga. Yet, in many ways, little has changed. McDonald's continues to fight for its throwaway packaging by any means necessary, no matter the cost, to reduce costs.